Ladies and gentlemen, please notice that exits are conveniently located at the front and rear of this auditorium. When leaving the theater, we suggest that the exit at the front of the auditorium will allow you easier access to the parking areas. Thank you.
We've just lost 90% of our young audience out there. Who's Susan Lucci? I don't know why they're an old lady voice, but anyways.
And he'd be like, yeah, exactly.
You can all you want. Agree to disagree.
Disney fight.
See, two dudes talking about Disney.
So many viewers. We just lost so many.
Hi, I'm Mike Field.
And I'm Mike Butler.
And you're listening to the Forgotten Cinema Podcast. Each episode, we highlight a film that, for a variety of reasons, was forgotten by audiences. Whether it's because a more popular movie was released at the same time, or the movie simply didn't catch on with an audience in its initial run. We'll discuss what we love about the movie, or perhaps don't love about it. We'll always recommend you revisit it. If you enjoy our podcast, please feel free to rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening to this podcast right now. Hello.
Hi.
Welcome.
Happy Valentine's Day.
That's not yet.
A
Couple days?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're close enough.
Happy Valentine's Day to you too. I hope you have a good one. I'll make sure that you're working.
I was going to say, I'll probably be at the theater.
Is it a
I'll be
weekend?
busy. This year? Oh, God. If it's on a weekend, we're screwed.
Well, it'll be busy. It might be a Friday, right? No.
It's a Friday.
Is it really? Oh, man.
We're dead.
I'm not working.
You
Who cares about that, though? So this episode, we're going to be talking about, it's not really romantic comedy, more like a romantic drama.
Yes.
We're talking about Meet Joe Black. This movie was released on November 13th, 1998, a Friday. It has a runtime of 178 minutes. Oh, it is super long. Rated PG-13, production budget of $90 million. Opening weekend, it did $15 million. Domestic, $44 million. And worldwide, $143 million. So as you can tell, it did better internationally.
Yes.
Why that's the case, I don't know.
Hopkins?
Could be Hopkins, could be Pitt. Could be the fact that it was based on a play by a French writer, Death Takes a Holiday, or did a French writer? No, I'm sorry, a Spanish writer. La Muerta in Vacanza is I believe. Well, his name is Alberto Casella, so let's just assume that.
Yes.
So Friday, November 13th, you're probably a week ahead or a couple weeks before Thanksgiving. So this is the kind of a nice open, a nice date to open. Excuse me.
Exactly. Yep.
It opened up against I Still Know What You Did Last Summer. I'll Be Home for Christmas, the JTT movie, which is awful.
Yep.
And Welcome to Whoop Whoop. I only put that in there because I like the title. I have never seen it. Never heard of it. Never seen it. I just put it in there because I like the title. The week prior to this movie, I'm talking November 6th, you had The Waterboy, The Siege, Belly, Velvet Goldmine, Elizabeth, and Gods and Monsters. That is a lot.
I've never seen The Siege, but I always wanted to.
The Siege is good. Tony Shalhoub, Denzel Washington. It's good.
Yeah,
I like it. The week Annette Bening's in that too. The week after the November 20th, so the week after this movie came out, Meet Joe Black, we had the Rugrats movie. This is probably up to Thanksgiving. The Rugrats movie, Enemy of the State, Celebrity, Waking Ned Divine, A Bug's Life, and Taxi.
So fun fact about the Rugrats movie. It was actually one of my favorite movie experiences when I was younger because I was in elementary school at this point, 1998. So I was probably 11. Yeah, I was 11. So I remember getting out of school. And Mom picked me up like always. Only we didn't go home. We drove the opposite way. And I was like, where are we going? Where are we going? She pulled in the parking lot. We were at the Cherry Street Theater in Milford, Connecticut, where I live.
Not there anymore.
And she brought me to see the Rugrats movie after school. And it was like one of the only times. Usually we saw movies as a family on the weekend, and it was planned out. Yep. But this was just a surprise trip. Hey, let's go.
Why?
I think she just wanted me to surprise me with the Rugrats because she knew I liked the Rugrats. So
cool.
Me and my brother see the Rugrats. So
do you want a tissue? Well, that's very good. No, so we're not talking about the Rugrats. We're talking about Meet Joe Black.
A movie I did not see when I was
We're going to see Meet Joe Black, honey. Directed by Martin Brest. He is the director of Scent of a Woman, Midnight Run, Beverly Hills Cop, and Geely.
The movie that ruined his career. Did it ruin his career?
He hasn't done anything since.
I noticed. I was like, he was a big-time guy.
I don't know.
Nothing.
I don't know. I mean, I tried to look and try to see if there's something in terms of like the research, but I don't know. Maybe just didn't want to do it anymore.
Wrote and directed it.
I don't know. If you haven't seen Geely, I mean, you should.
Because because it's considered one of the worst movies of all time.
Yeah, I don't know. But anyways, Meet Joe Black was written by a bunch of people. Written by the original script, I believe, was Ron Osborne and Jeff Reno.
Are you just going in order of the IMDb?
No. Because I read listen, they wrote it together. Because
Okay.
when you look at credits, I know you know this, but when you look at writing credits and you see the spelled out A-N-D,
Yes.
that means that they wrote it together.
Mhm.
When you start seeing the ampersand, did I say that right? Yeah.
Yeah.
That little symbol, that means that they did a rewrite. They did enough of a rewrite where they got credit for it. There's
Yes.
probably, honestly, there's 4 writers here. 2 of them did rewrites. I'm sure that there were probably uncredited rewrites as well. So those aren't going to, but you get paid not to have your name on there.
Well, yeah, Martin Brest is a writer as well, so I would imagine that he probably touched.
Sure. Well, he produced this movie too.
Yeah.
It's his production company. So Ron Osborne and Jeff Reno did the original script. They did Moonlighting, a TV show that starred Sybil Shepherd and Bruce Willis. You may have heard of him. And Radioland Murders. That was the other George Lucas movie that he directed. Oh, and he did American Graffiti too.
Duckman.
And I did not have Duckman.
I just thought it was funny they both did.
Then you had Kevin Wade come in and do a rewrite. Obviously, he had written Working Girl. That was the Harrison Ford, Sigourney Weaver, Melanie Griffith movie. Blue Bloods. Right now he's been doing Blue Bloods on TV basically, and he wrote Junior, which I always like because I'm pregnant. So, anyways, that's when Arnold Schwarzenegger is pregnant. And then another rewrite by Bo Goldman. His most notable are One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest and Melvin Howard, which he won Academy Awards for.
And Son of a Woman.
But I was doing the Academy Award winner once.
Okay.
but like we said, there's probably some uncredited rewrites in there too. Cinematography by Emmanuel Lubezki. Did I say that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Well,
I'm just going to give you 3 movies: Birdman, Gravity, and The Revenant. He won Academy Awards for all those 3. That's why I put him in there. We talked about Martin Brest produced this. Music by Thomas Newman, who has never won an Academy Award. He has been nominated 14 times and never won. And I know you listen, I already know you want to do the Bond movies.
I don't like his Bond movie scores.
Really?
I love Thomas Newman, but I hate his Bond movie scores because they are not bombastic enough, and I don't think they carry the style of James Bond into the new century.
Okay. He also did 1917.
I'm excited for that, and I love his soundtrack for the Pixar movies.
How do you not win? 14 nods?
I'm shocked.
Give the man an Oscar.
He's one of the few, like, when you hear names for
Yes.
scores, you think Thomas Newman.
Will you please someone give this guy an Oscar, please?
1917, maybe that's going to be his one.
His 15th nomination. He's like the Susan Lucci of the Oscars. We've just lost 90% of our young audience out there. Who's Susan Lucci? I don't know why they're an old lady voice, but anyways. All right, starring Brad Pitt as Joe Black, or Death, as you may know him. You know who Brad Pitt's from, right, everyone? Anthony Hopkins as William Parrish. He won an Oscar for Silence of the Lambs, Oscar award-winning Anthony Hopkins. Brad Pitt is also an Oscar winner, but he actually won for producing 12 Years a Slave.
Oh, that's right. Okay, yep.
So he won an Oscar for that, not for acting, but for producing. But hey, an Oscar's an Oscar.
I remember when they went up on stage and Brad Pitt was on. I was like,
yeah, he was in it, but he produced it.
I didn't know. Yeah. Hey guys, quick side note: Mike Butler here. As you all know, we record these episodes weeks ahead of time. And since then, Brad Pitt has just recently won the Oscar for Best Supporting Actor in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. So now he has a producing Oscar and an acting Oscar. Congratulations, Brad. Now on with the episode.
Claire Forlani as Susan Parrish. She is Bill Parrish's daughter. She is from Mallrats, Mystery Men, The Rock, and that's it. She's no longer around. I was watching this and I turned to my wife and I'm like, you remember when Claire Forlani was like the it girl and then she was everywhere? Where the heck she go?
She's done a couple of small things.
I know.
But yeah.
But she was like she was all over the place at some point during the mid 90s and late 90s.
I was surprised she doesn't do as much because, I mean, I know it's like almost 20 years after Sensen, but like she's still very pretty.
I didn't realize she was British. Yeah. I didn't know that she was British. Did you not realize she was British?
Me neither.
Yeah.
But she moved to America in 91.
Whatever.
So,
I mean, it's just,
but yeah.
I don't know why. I mean, can we see more? She's good.
Yeah.
I like her. Well, yeah, I like her. Jake Weber as Drew. He's more, probably people more know him from the Medium TV series, but he's also in Dawn of the Dead. He was a great jerk, and he's a great jerk in this one.
Was he? He was a good guy in Dawn of the Dead, though, right?
I'm talking
I haven't
about
seen it in
this
a while.
one.
But he was like the hero character. Him and the lady were like the main hero.
Right? I don't remember. I only saw parts of Dawn of the Dead.
You didn't see all that?
No.
I know you don't like zombie movies.
I don't.
But Dawn of the Dead,
no interest.
It's Zack Snyder. So it's a tough
reason.
It's a tough sell. But Dawn of the Dead is actually very well done, and actually
I've seen enough of it. I've seen the stuff where they're picking off people on top of the building. I've seen all that stuff.
It's more the stuff in the mall with the people stuff.
It's the same nonsense. I don't care. There's like countless zombie stuff everywhere. Enough is enough.
That's good.
That's great.
And it was
Fantastic.
before it was everywhere.
That's fine. I'm tired of it. I'm done with it. I'm sorry.
I'm gonna watch this one.
Marsha Gay. I'm ignoring you.
It's forgotten cinema.
Marsha Gay Harden as Allison. She's the daughter of Bill Parrish and the sister to Susan Parrish. She's from The Mist, Mystic River, the Newsroom TV show. She is an Oscar Award winner for the movie Pollock. And Jeffrey Tambor as Quince. You may know him from Arrested Development, Transparent, and did you see Death of Stalin yet on HBO? You should see that. It's really funny.
Is it?
Yeah, it's really funny. And what's also funny is that these 6 actors that's it. Like, there's other people in the movie that have small lines here and there, but this is it for the cast. These 6 people.
Yeah.
If you don't,
I would even say the other character would be you only like
who?
Lois Kelly Miller plays the Jamaican woman who's only cast as.
Okay.
But I think she's very. I listed her on my notes because I think she did a very good job.
Oh,
I think she was really
their
good.
scene together is very strong.
Yes.
Absolutely. Both scenes. Anytime they yeah, we'll get to that.
Yep.
So actually, we can this is loosely just one more fact before I did some of the Oscar nods, but I want to get to some of the other facts before we start getting into what the movie's about. This movie's loosely based, it says it's inspired by the play Death Takes a Holiday, which I just talked about before, loosely based on it. But it was an earlier screenplay from that play that was written by Walter Ferris. He had written just one notable thing, the Swiss Family Robinson from 1940, and also from Maxwell Anderson, who wrote the screenplay with him. And he is known for All Quiet on the Western Front from 1930 and Key Largo from 1948.
Was this screenplay the same screenplay that was the 1932 film?
I do not believe. I believe that this script that they wrote here is
more
inspired by both.
The other one
No. The script that Meet Joe Black, the movie that we're talking about, that was written by 4 people, is inspired by the play and the earlier screenplay because they did the movie That Takes a Holiday.
Okay, okay.
It's inspired by both of that, but it's not. I don't think it's a complete. What's the word I'm looking for?
Faithful.
Yes,
remake. You're right.
Adaptation. Yeah, absolutely. So before we get into it, why don't you talk about what Meet Joe Black is about for anyone that has never seen or never heard of this before?
All right. Meet Joe Black is about death and Anthony Hopkins, basically. That's basically the movie. But Hopkins plays William Parrish. He's a big-time media mogul who has been hearing voices. He's been ill lately. And it turns out that's the voice of death. Death visits Bill Parrish. He wants to take a vacation to experience what it is to be human. And he's kind of chosen Bill as his vessel, or not as his vessel. He's chosen Bill as his guide because he believes that Bill kind of represents some of the best of humanity. He can show him the most of what it is to be human. To do that, Death has taken the body of Brad Pitt, a young man who Bill's daughter, Susan, coincidentally, I believe it's a coincidence, met earlier in the day and kind of fell for. Unfortunately, the young man died in a car accident, not off screen, but when no one was looking. And Death has taken his body. Yeah. So Bill is about to celebrate his 65th birthday with a huge, lavish birthday party set up by his daughter, Allison, played by Marsha Gay Harden. And he's also negotiating a merger of his company by another huge media company. So Bill's got to deal with knowing his death is imminent, showing death itself around, and also negotiating this merger, dealing with his giant birthday party, and basically trying to say goodbye to his daughters and make sure his daughters are having a good life. So over the course of the film, Death falls for Susan, as Susan was already kind of enamored with him during their brief encounter in the young man's life. Bill obviously doesn't like that Death is falling in love with Susan. Bill finds out that the merger with his company might not be all it seems to be. Drama ensues. Basically, it's a love story between Death and Susan, but also a father-daughter story about a father saying goodbye to his daughters and leaving behind a legacy.
Yeah, I think it's about a lot of that. I think it has to do just with living your life, the right way.
Right.
And especially because he chooses Bill Parrish because he's lived his life the right way. He's a good man. And he wants to be, and he's a good instructor, he says at one point. Because he wants to learn about life, which I thought was a little odd that he didn't know a lot about life. A little bit,
Yeah, that's actually a good place to start. Start with Death as his character.
Okay, we can start with his performance.
I think when he's the spectral form of him, which I think is a fantastic scene, when Hopkins meets Death himself at the first time, and he invites him to the library. The shape of the skull in the window pane. I love that scene.
Yeah.
And I love the way it's acted out. I love that it's a combination of Brad Pitt and Anthony Hopkins' voices.
Well, the first one, when he says yes, when he's in bed, and that's his voice.
That's just his voice, yeah. But he becomes more of a merger when he's in the library.
When he becomes the guy, the man in the coffee shop, as his character's known as.
Yeah. Who are you? Just think of millenniums multiplied by eons, compounded by time without end. I've been around that long. But it's only recently that your affairs here have piqued my interest. Call it boredom. The natural curiosity of me, the most lasting and significant element in existence, has come to see you. About what? I want to have a look around before I take you.
That death is more sure of himself. That death is wiser. That death is much more ethereal. And then as he gets into the body, all of a sudden he doesn't know anything. And I don't know if that's a conscious choice or if they were just like, death's really wise, and he's in this body, and now death's not so wise. But maybe death just knows about death, but he doesn't know about being a person.
Well, he may know about, or death himself may know about what people do, what people say, what people act, but he's never felt those emotions. So when he's inside the body of a man, of a human,
suddenly feeling those emotions throws him off.
Yeah, he is suddenly having to deal with the fact that he is having human emotions and human thoughts and human reactions to what's happening around him, that when he starts to fall in love with Susan, he at first doesn't understand it. Then he understands that it is good. And, so in that respect, he's never understood what peanut butter tastes like, which we talked about.
Yes.
And I think maybe that's what the new feelings are. Like, it's almost like when he's at the board meeting and Drew is giving him an attitude, he doesn't understand that he's getting an attitude.
Not at first.
No, I get that. No, absolutely. It's very tough because I know that Pitt's performance is sometimes ridiculed by people, and I get that, because it's just like, why is he so stunted? Why is he,
It's purposeful.
I agree.
Yeah,
agree.
right.
No, of course it's purposeful. Yeah. So, and it's also, but once you kind of talk about or talk through like what he is supposed to be experiencing in terms of what death is supposed to be experiencing through this body, this human body, then you kind of understand how he behaves. You kind of understand a little bit how because he warms up to Susan. Like when his first interactions with Susan as death, he's like very, not simpleton, but he's just very, I guess simpleton. I guess he's very like stunted.
He
almost.
is. I mean, most of it is very much like, yes, death is wise and stuff, but when he gets in the body, he's a child. His movements are, he's never moved before. He's never walked before. He's never spoken before, looked through eyes.
This is already a 178-minute movie. I don't think you want to take another 10 minutes to have him explain that. And
right.
You don't want
it doesn't
that
need to be explained.
Yeah, that's the thing, too. The criticism...
They explain it in some of the dialogue, like when she says, I like making love with you, because it's like making love with someone for the first time. And absolutely. It really is. That's when you're like, oh, he really is a child.
Death gets laid. But no, the criticism of his performance is not fair because you're criticizing, you can't, because people do this. They criticize where they don't want to be spoon-fed stuff, and then they criticize where they want to be spoon-fed because they don't understand things. It's like, listen, the movie's not the movie's telling you a story. If you the clues are there,
yes,
find them.
A movie should make you think. A movie should make you. You need your thinking hat on in all movies, basically.
Absolutely.
You should be thinking about a character's motivation and how they got to the place they are. They don't need to. If they're telling a story, you don't need flashbacks all the time, or you don't need, this long-winded diatribe of information. They don't need a monologue by Death. Death gave you this great monologue that's all ethereal. You want him to give a monologue now about the ins and outs and workings of, like when Anthony Hopkins asks him, where are you now? What's up with other people? How are people dying now?
Oh,
and he
like
talks about, it's beyond your understanding.
Yeah.
I'm good with that.
Absolutely.
I don't need to know.
But then I wondered, when he was having sex with Susan, was he killing people during that sexual experience?
I thought that the entire movie, liking peanut. Oh, this is delicious. Beep, beep, beep. He's taking people while that's happening. Absolutely.
Oh, okay.
So we always begin the podcast with almost all of them with you asking me, do you like this movie?
Sure.
I'm going to tell you right now, I put this on the list. I love this movie.
Yeah.
I first saw this movie, not when I was 11 when the movie came out, but I was probably 14, 15 when I saw this movie, not too long after, and I immediately loved this movie. So now I want to ask you.
Ask me.
What do you think about this movie?
I like this movie quite a bit. As this movie is, I complained that it's 178 minutes. I texted you. It was 3 hours, but it does not feel 3 hours.
No, not at all.
I mean, I will say that the ending is a long ending. It does take a while to end, but that's the whole point. He's trying to say goodbye to his family without them knowing that he's saying goodbye.
And he's trying to hold on as long as he can during the party.
Right. It's a movie it's a big budgeted movie. It's $90 million. I guess I'm going to go into why maybe some people don't like it. But it's a play. It's an actor's movie. It's a movie where if you're not into watching performers perform, you know what I mean? Hearing dialogue and hearing, monologues and dialogue that mean other things than what they're saying, you're not going to like this movie because you're not going to be, that's not what's attracting you.
So I was really excited to have my fiance watch this movie.
Oh no.
She wasn't a fan of, it's a fair thing. Like you said, it's a play. The dialogue kind of got
Sure.
her. She wasn't a huge fan of the dialogue. She wasn't a huge fan of how these characters aren't relatable.
Okay.
In terms of
being super rich.
They're super rich white people.
Absolutely.
They are the 1%. They are the modern Great Gatsby.
This is 20 years ago. Yeah, absolutely.
So she wasn't a huge fan of that aspect of it. And I can understand sometimes, like, at first I was like, all right, it's based on a play. So I thought maybe, because I hadn't looked into the notes yet, I just saw that. Maybe because it's Broadway plays, so that's why they chose to make these characters super rich. Not realizing that wasn't really the reason.
Mm-hmm.
But I do understand that disconnect as well. That disconnect to, I don't have a mansion. I don't know. I'm not a huge mobile.
You don't have a giant
empire.
Pool on your upper level of your penthouse?
That's awesome. That's not even his main mansion.
Listen, I'm going to tell you right now. I can't relate that, but I would.
Oh my God. As they went to the library, I was like, I want that library. I want that library so bad.
Well, what's funny is that you think that when they're in their big home and they're having dinner, I want to say everyone for dinner. I will come over for dinner again.
Yes.
But you subconsciously think they're in the mansion on the out in the Hamptons. It's supposed to be.
At that point, they're in
the city
house,
and you're like, holy cow! Once you think about that, you're like, oh my God.
That's when I was like, how are they walking to work when they're in the? And I was like, oh, because that's his other place.
They're obscenely rich. I know, and I understand that criticism. Absolutely, it is tough. It's relatability is a factor.
But what I like about it is they are still, and maybe it's a little unrealistic. They're good people, even though they're that rich. And Bill Parrish is very much a paragon of what you want
to be
your richest 1% to be, what you want a good man to
be.
Right.
Money doesn't change people. Money reveals the type of person you are. I think I've said that before. Then I'm not the only one who's ever said that, so I'm not copywriting that.
He's not your Rupert Murdochs or whatever.
Well, yeah, he's not. Yeah, exactly. He's a good guy.
He's your Citizen Kane. He's what Citizen Kane wanted to be.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, if Citizen Kane never went off the deep end in the end of that film,
mm-hmm.
it's like it's a little bit of wishful thinking, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still well done.
Oh, absolutely.
I can understand how that might be a disconnect for some people. You have to look beyond the fact that this is a story. This is not real life. Maybe this is maybe a fairy tale kind of version.
Oh, yeah, I could see that, like a modern fairy tale.
Yes,
that makes sense. It's wonderfully lit. It looks beautiful. The entire movie looks beautiful.
The cinematography is awesome. One of the things I noticed, and I brought up to Elise, was that their eyes are always shining.
Oh yeah,
they're always glistening, and I almost wondered if that was. Clearly, it was on purpose. You don't make choices like that not on purpose. But I almost wonder if they pointed lights cleverly so it didn't blow out their face, but still lit on their eyes, or if they had Visine in their eyes.
I don't know. I don't know what they do.
There's one scene where when Brad Pitt when Death first kisses Susan, he's got a tear in his eye, but it falls slowly and unrealistic. Like it doesn't fall down his cheek, and it's not there in other scenes. So if it was a tear, I would wonder if they wanted to copy that tear, or if the Visine in his eye fell down.
Well, they give you stuff they give you that glycerin stuff that makes you well up and cry.
Right.
So that maybe that was it.
I'm not sure, but I do like, because eyes are the window to the soul, and we're talking about a movie about death and souls and stuff like that. So I almost wonder if that was why the eyes are really what you're drawn to in the film.
Well, I mean, when you say eyes, I'm thinking of Susan. I'm thinking of death, or I'm thinking of Bill. Not Allison or Quince.
You don't get
Drew.
those extreme close-ups on them as often either. But yes, it is the main three.
You get the three because at the end of the movie, he almost, like when he's telling her who he is, but he's not. He's almost like revealing it, and she can sense it, and he says, "Say it," and she's like, "You're Joe." Like she can't.
She doesn't want to. Yes.
Right.
She knows, but she doesn't.
But
want to
I think so it's almost like those three of them know what's happening.
Well, let's get into the end then, because
you want to go right to the ending.
Well, we're talking about why people don't. Or right now, we're talking about why some people don't connect to the movie and why it's.
Well, before we were doing the podcast, I was looking at Google questions.
Right, and that was one of the things we.
What happens
mentioned
at the end of each of? Like, you don't get it. So it's pretty obvious.
Well, that's fresh in my mind. Let's talk about that.
So
she clearly knows he's dead.
So at the end of the movie, he has a big party. He goes and sees Joe, and they have their thing, and they walk over this bridge, which is awesomely lit, and even the scene when he's standing under the tree.
Yes,
it's so beautiful. So they walk over the bridge, and because he's going to die, basically. He's taking him. He's going him to the next realm, and he walks over the bridge. And
the bridge is symbolism, guys.
And then Pitt's character comes back, but he's no longer Death. He's the man that Death body he took.
Right.
He needed a body. He took this guy's body. And I think you get the idea is because he loves Susan and because he wants her to be happy, he gives her, because she tells him earlier in the party that, I fell for you. That spark was the man in the coffee shop. Yes. And he realized it wasn't him that she fell in love with. She fell in love with the man whose body he took. He gives the man back to her. So so she comes back and she knows that Joe's left. She knows Joe has taken her father and he's now dead. Yes, his body's on the other side of that bridge, probably laying down. Yes, it's symbolism. It's not meant to. It's a movie. It's not meant to be realistic.
Right.
I get it. It's funny to think that she's with this dude now and her father's dead on the other side of the bridge. I get that. If you're thinking of it in terms of realistic terms, yes, his dead body is over there. But
he's already said the goodbyes. They've already said that. So she knows that, but and she's upset, but she's made peace with that.
Absolutely.
And she's doing the one wish that her father wanted.
It's tough. That's a tough scene to do for her, for Claire Forlani.
I wish you could have known my father.
Me too. Me too.
You have to do both, that you're so happy that you have this man back that you have fallen in love with, the spark that your father tells you in that helicopter ride where he's like, I just want you that lightning to strike.
Right.
And she has to emote that, and she has to emote the fact that her father is now dead.
And that she lost Joe, which she still loved Joe even though she didn't
well, it's a conflicting thing. Like,
She's sad she lost Joe, but happy she got him back. Yeah. She's sad she lost her dad. I don't get what people don't get about that. It's all pretty clear. It's so clear she knows who Death is when she doesn't want to say his name.
Because, Mike, some people want the plate to be put out in front of them and people to cut the meat for them so they know what's going on here.
But it bothers me so much.
I get you. I understand. It's like you said,
yes.
What you said before. It's a fairy tale, like a fairy tale life, a fairy tale story that we're seeing here. It's all part of that. This movie is not meant to be realism.
Yes.
This movie is meant to be surrealism. It's meant to be just like you said. I keep saying fairy tale, but it's a story. It's as simple as that.
When the man in the coffee shop does come back, it's clear that he knows something of what has happened.
Right.
He knows that Bill died because he's, I wish you could have known I wish I could have too. And he says it's been in a cloud. He's been in a fog.
He doesn't know. Yeah.
He remembers some stuff, but not all of it. So he knows. It's not like he's completely unaware of what has happened to him.
And I wonder if
in the situation.
I wonder if, and this isn't really the job of the storytelling or the writers or the director or the movie itself. I wonder if, as they move forward, if her meeting Joe becomes cloudy, she doesn't remember that it's him. It becomes morphed where, you know what I mean? Like that whole experience kind of goes away. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know. I would think not. I would think
that she had sex
leave her with
him,
this deeper appreciation for life and death itself.
Yeah.
I think that's nice. If she did fall in love with death, then when she gets older, hopefully, and she lives a long life, and it's her time to go, she's more at peace with it, much like Bill was. Like that's also a nice gift that death could leave.
Sure. I get that. Yeah. That's a big thing. And then the other big thing is the fact that there's two different cuts of this movie.
Yes.
So there's a 178-minute cut, and then there's a cut that is done for like when you go on the planes or on TV. That's 2.5.
2 hours.
Is it just 2 hours?
It's just 2 hours.
And they cut out is the business stuff, the boardroom stuff, which is kind of stupid because his whole point is that he wants to leave a legacy behind. He doesn't want to do the merger.
Which in the 2 hour cut they leave that which I like his when he gets angry and talks about wanting to leave a legacy.
Yes,
they leave that quote.
But that's it. And then you don't know anything else.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, so it doesn't make it's to the point where Brest disowns the cut. And so if you're watching Meet Joe Black and it says directed by Alan Smithy, that's not the version that you should be watching. You should be watching the 3-hour one.
Yes,
because I don't know if people know this, but like when either directors like leave a project or they don't, I guess they disagree with like Brest does, like this, I didn't direct this movie, this isn't me, and they want to pull their name from a movie.
When it's the creative control has been taken out.
Right. Anything in that regard where the director no longer doesn't want to be responsible for it. I don't think they do it anymore, but back in the day, it used to be directed by a man who doesn't exist named Alan Smithy. So that is just, they don't want the credit because it's not their movie, so they give it to this fake guy.
I think they don't do it anymore because it's tougher now with all the social media, all the
Plus
early
everyone
announcements.
knows. Yeah.
Exactly. Too many people know, so it's
Right.
too late.
Yeah, so it's like it doesn't. Yeah, well, they might. You never know. I mean, maybe it's
Look
a new
up
name.
Alan Smithy's credits on IMDb.
Holy crap! This guy's 185 years old. Yeah, so you should really. You're doing a disservice if you're watching if you're judging or being critical of the movie by watching the 2-hour version you see on TV. You really should watch the 3-hour version because it does have a lot more stuff going on in
Yes.
there. If you were a fan of I mean, again, you have to be a fan of the storytelling and the dialogue and the writing and just kind of everything that goes into this movie.
If you like film, I don't understand how you could.
well,
not.
no, absolutely,
The
absolutely.
acting's fantastic. I mean, this was one of the very first, I believe, like the very first romantic movies that I liked.
Mhm.
Not romantic comedies, but like
Drama. Yep.
drama romance movies that I liked. You know, as a teenager, I was like, this is good. The acting is good. The lighting is good. It doesn't help that it had Anthony Hopkins, who I've always kind of liked growing up.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a fantastic movie with so many bits and pieces that are really good. And yes, the dialogue is a little contrived at times. It's a little heavy-handed.
Do you have an example?
Very play-like. A lot of what Susan says, a lot of her dialogue about, I wish this would never end. I wish it was like
Yeah.
a lot of their conversations toward the end.
When he meets Quince at the end, and Quince basically tells him that he screwed the big guy over. I'm talking about Bill Parrish. He
Bill's
screwed him
father-in-law,
over,
yeah.
not knowing, because he just revealed that. And it was just like an offhand comment where Bill tells him basically Quince is like, hey, I know Bill has shut down any idea of having the merger.
Yes.
So Quince goes to him and says like, hey, listen, man, if you want, I've got a couple ideas. And he's like, well, how, when we can meet up this week? He's like, well, that's up to Joe. And he's basically saying like, I don't know, I could be dead.
Exactly.
And he doesn't know that. So then Quince relays that to Drew, who is Susan's boyfriend at the time and also a member of the board and a member of Bill Parrish's company. He's like kind of like he mentors him. So Quince tells Drew that, it's up to Joe. Joe's going to let us know it's up to Joe. And then Drew's like, what? He's up to Joe? Because they don't know who this guy just suddenly shows up. Who the heck is he?
Yeah.
Drew doesn't like him, obviously, because Drew has a tough couple of days. Because not only does Bill Parrish tank the merger, he then gets dumped by his girlfriend. So he's having a tough couple of days. And so when Quince tells Joe at the party, it's just towards the end of the movie, that he screwed up. He didn't, because they basically turn those words around on Bill, and Drew meets with the board in private. They vote Bill out because they want the merger, because he tells him that, hey, this merger, he increased the guy who's going to buy the company has increased his pay, and he'll take the company with or without Bill Parrish. They all vote to kick Bill out.
Well, I think it's also it's the notion of Joe that finally gets the board.
Right. Yeah, because basically that's how it turns it. So Quince tells Joe, like, I screwed up, and he's like, just tell him, and then he's like, he'll forgive you. And Quince starts talking about love, about how you have no secrets between him and Allison, how she loves him because they have no secrets between them. He knows she knows all his skeletons and he knows hers, and it's basically more of an idea where they share everything together, and once you do that, you're free.
Right.
So he tells him that, and you think that Joe learns that lesson, and then Joe goes and sees Susan during the party, and she's like, take me with you. And he's like, and then he goes back to Bill. He's like, I'm going to take Susan with me. Like, it's almost like he forgot that lesson. You know what I mean?
He's greedy. He's still deaf.
No, I get that.
It takes a little bit more shoving. Like, he's slowly learning what it is to be alive. I like how, talking about that Quince conversation, how he pats Quince's head.
Yeah.
And he tells him, do you like me? And it's like, you're one of my favorite people.
Right.
It's like Quince doesn't realize the significance of that line. And I love that.
Well,
that is the most immortal being that has existed before time itself, telling you you're one of his favorite
Well,
people.
that's like the line when they first meets him, and he's like, and Quince is like, this is fun. He's like, yes, Quince, it is. It's funny because he's such a nice guy. He's such like Quince's character. He's like, it's not. I wouldn't say he's like a pleaser in the terms of like he's a kiss ass. He just he wants to help. He wants to be, whatever Bill decides. And I kind of wish that, because he says Quince is a good guy, and Bill's like, yep. He said, but I kind of wanted something more between Bill and Quince. I wanted something where he says something to him.
I was a little disappointed in their last conversation where Bill was just like, yep, I understand. Nope, you made a mistake. It happens.
Yeah.
I kind of wanted more like he's saying goodbye to all these family members. It's like, that's his son-in-law.
And he never says goodbye to the fact that because he has that conversation with Allison, who Marcia Gay Harden plays Allison really understated and really well. And her dynamic with her father is actually, to me, a lot more interesting than his dynamic with Susan, because you kind of get the Susan, his favorite.
It's a little heartbreaking with Allison.
It is, but she's like, I know I'm not your favorite, but I know you've never made me feel unloved. And it's like, and she plays it so well, and she's so good, and it's such a strong scene. And it's almost like he knows that when he dies, it's going to be really tough for her, but because Quince is there for her, you know that she'll be okay. But he never addresses that about Quince. And you kind of want him to be like, you just want him to be like, Quince, you're a great guy. I've never, you know what I mean?
It's true. And I think his last dialogue with Allison, he lets her do all the talking.
Yeah.
And then he just kind of hugs her and goes, thanks, babe.
It's a little, it's
like, just make sure she's okay. Tell her it's going to be all right. Like you told Susan.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like I get that you want Susan to be happy and you've told her that, but then you tell Susan that everything's going to be okay. No regrets. You don't really tell Allison that.
Yeah.
And also, I want to bring up Allison's line about it's okay to have favorites. You're allowed one. So I want to tell my parents right now, listen, it's already a cat's out of the bag. You're allowed to have favorites. It's okay. You can just admit it. I'm your favorite. Just let me know.
Well, I'm gonna tell you right now. If you want to solidify that favorite process, you need to give them a grandchild. Okay. You want to make them your favorite. You give them a grandchild, and if you give them a boy grandchild, forget it. Forget it. It's nonstop favorite time. Woo! So you better hurry up.
I must give them an heir.
I like Quince's line. I love little girls.
I remember when you were little girls, and
I love little girls.
And now you're all grown up.
Oh my God.
When he's like, I remember when you two little girls. I love little girls. And they're all like, what? And they don't ever address it again. They just go back on.
No, because he's a nice guy. You know he didn't mean it like that. And he just says it bad.
So I think our big criticism of Meet Joe Black is that not enough Quince. Not enough reverence with Bill for Quince.
Yes.
I just thinking about that now, it's not that I'm not interested in the Susan dynamic. It's not that I'm not interested in her as a character.
Right.
I've seen that already, and I know that already, and I'm actually more interested in the dynamic of the daughter, like Allison, who is not the favorite, almost not in terms of like she's crapped on or anything,
right?
But she never let it gets to her.
Yes,
and she's planning the party. She's just trying to, and even when he tastes the cake and she's upset, and he's like, oh, let's just do this one. Oh, it's love. It's like you're being a little sarcastic.
I thought the same thing. You try all three at least.
You're being a little sarcastic, and another thing is he has such a hold on his daughters' lives. Like I love my daughters. I don't know if I want to know every single thing. You know what I mean?
Well, I think I
don't want to control them.
I don't know about how controlling he is. He doesn't even like a normal. Like I would think that a normal guy in Bill's position would want Susan to be with Drew. Would want that dynasty right there. But he would be like, "You're marrying him." He doesn't until she falls in love with death, and then he's like, that's when you're not doing it. I've made my point.
But he has that conversation with her beforehand.
Right away.
Yeah, but not to cut you off. But he has that conversation with her in the helicopter about how, Drew's not that kind of guy. Drew doesn't seem like that. I want you to have that spark. I want you to have that energy. He wants her to be happy. Yeah. So he's telling her right there, find somebody I don't think Drew's that guy for you. Don't just settle. Then death comes into the picture. Then he's like, no. I don't want you with this guy. Then he's like, maybe it was too hard on Drew. It's like, stop giving her opinions on who she should be with. That's not your job.
He's just trying to lead her away from death. That's all.
No, I get that. I'm just saying, I don't know.
I don't know if he has a huge hold on him.
Maybe it's an unfamiliar dynamic that I see, that I'm witnessing.
He's also a single parent. Okay. He doesn't have the mother anymore, so he's got more of a hold on his daughters because that's the only thing left of her, basically. Mm-hmm. Which, again, is something that I'd like to have seen more. Basically, I want a little bit more of Bill's story and a little bit less of Death's story. Yeah, I think that's okay. I don't want to... Not Death's story necessarily, but maybe Death's love story. Because I love the scene with Death and like the Jamaican woman.
Right.
I think that's a big part of him as well. It's not just the learning experience he feels with Susan, but I think when he meets the Jamaican woman, which I'm only naming Jamaican woman because that's her credit as well.
I know. She doesn't have a name.
It's this older Jamaican woman who's dying, and she knows it's
him. She knows he's a demon or a spirit. She said she calls him
the Bomba Man or something like that. I think she knows he's deaf. Mm-hmm. And at first she's afraid he's come for her, but then she feels the pain again. She's just take me. Mm-hmm. And she teaches him an important lesson about how, it's like visiting the islands. It's like, it's a holiday.
Yeah, you're not, you can't stay. Yeah.
You can't stay. And she knows she's the one that kind of, I think, is big on convincing Death it's time to go.
She's also convincing him to kill her. several times, which is fine. But it's like he doesn't. He's like, not your time. It wasn't. I don't even think he was visiting her to take her when he visited her. I think he was just visiting her.
Yes.
And then she says, like, take, and he takes her.
And he goes, okay.
Yeah.
And he kind of breaks the rule because she taught him a lesson.
Right.
Obia.
No, Mama.
Obia, man. I'm going to die.
Mama, stop it. It's just a man.
What's Abia?
Bad spirit. She just all fever. She don't mean nothing. Please help us.
Of course.
No, be a sister. No devil, no dopey. Everything gonna be irie.
That's another reason
I think
he's got to go. He can't make those. He's breaking his rules.
Yeah,
at that point.
but now I don't know if we've talked about this before, but did he kill the man in the coffee shop because he wanted his body, because he talked to Susan, or the man in the coffee shop died and he just took the body?
That's something I think is a sticking point. The couple times I've talked about this movie to some people think I've talked about to people that think he chose Pitt's character, but I think it was just a coincidence, because it seems like when Susan walks in and recognizes him,
right,
he's like, shit, I chose the wrong one. I feel like that almost blows up his spot, and he almost has that reaction as like death, as Pitt has that reaction of like, oh, we met.
Yeah.
So I don't think he knew. I think it was just a coincidence. Proximity to Bill, looks and stature probably helped.
That's
and stuff
fine.
like that.
Yeah.
He was like,
Well,
"Oh,
he was recently killed, so he probably just grabbed them.
right.
Yeah.
Someone he could probably heal the body. It was a younger guy, not an older person. and
He might have
was able
been.
to experience
He might
life.
have been the one that goes before Bill. You know what I mean? So like, okay, this guy. Oh, Bill Parrish is next. I'll just take this guy's body.
Oh, that's true.
You know, it could be
he
something
did
like that.
extend Bill's life. Yeah.
Yeah. So it could be something like that. Yeah. We always talk about lines that we like.
There's so many lines in this movie.
Right. So I was just gonna go to the end when they bust Drew, and he's just like, "Who'd have thought you and IRS agents like death and taxes?" Because when he talks about it in the boardroom, he's just like, "Says death and taxes, what?" And he's like, "Death and taxes."
Truth is, joining John Bonnecue is every bit as certain as death and taxes.
Death and taxes?
Yes.
Death and taxes?
Yes.
What an odd pairing.
It's just a saying, Mr. Black.
By whom?
Doesn't matter.
Then why'd you bring it up?
You're not familiar with the phrase, in this world nothing is certain but death and taxes?
Well, I am now.
Glad I could be of some help.
I love where he talks. He tries to get Susan as a friend. Can you be my friend? And she's like, I have enough friends. I don't have any.
Oh, so I know.
I can see why. I'm like, oh, come on. He's a nice guy. He's a weird guy, but come on. That's a little mean.
I would like it if we were friends.
I've got plenty of friends.
I don't have any.
Oh, I can see why.
I didn't mean to offend you at dinner. I'm sometimes not quite at home around people.
I also like the last line of the movie from Bill, where he stops Death before they go over the bridge, and he says, "Should I be afraid?" And Death looks at him and goes, "A man like you? No."
Yeah, because he knows where he's
He's
going.
a good man.
Right.
And then Bill's got that smile, and he's like, "Okay, now I'm definitely ready to go."
Should I be afraid? Not a man like you.
I actually like the fact that when he goes to see Death at the end, and they're side by side and they're looking down and they're having the conversation, and then it's actually Bill who turns first
because
he's
more
ready
to go.
Well, he's ready to go. He's like, let's go. I'm ready now. That's like that. I thought that's subtle, but that's very good. It's a very good move, and it's like you don't catch that unless you're in tune with the movie. Do you know what I mean? Otherwise, I would assume they're probably at the end like, come on, let's go already. But like the fact that he turns, it's like he's ready to go before Death, and it's interesting.
It's hard to let go, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, it is.
Absolutely. I think it's great.
Like that message is good. I like I mentioned the woman's quote, but the woman's quote is, "Life is a holiday. Take a bunch of nice pictures before you leave."
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like, then she asks him, "Did you take some nice pictures?" And he said, "Yes."
Yeah. Well, he do the dialogue though, do the Jamaican island dialogue. No.
Although Pitt did a really good job of the Rastafari.
Yeah.
But I'm sure he had a lot of practice.
Of course.
I did not, so I am not going to.
Oh, you baby.
Listen, I'll do some British, but I don't want to. I don't want to do things I don't.
So
Just to get me in trouble.
Did you get? So his name is Bill Parrish, William Parrish,
right?
Will Parrish, Do you get that?
Yes.
Yeah.
I did.
Okay.
This was the first time I got it. I didn't get it on the other times I've
Yeah.
watched this movie, but this was the first. This was the first time I was like, oh, good.
The other note I had in here was that a couple notes was that they initially had Gene Hackman to play Bill Parrish, which, nah, I can't see that.
Here's the thing. When we talk about how much we love Gene Hackman, and
This isn't the role for him.
He's not likable.
This isn't the role for him. Yeah,
He's likable in an angry, gruff way, but he doesn't represent. He's not a character that always would represent like the best of society. It would be tough for him.
I think the fact that would be as tall as Pitt or taller. I think the fact that Hopkins is shorter than Pitt in terms of just their heights, I think kind of gives Death more of a
That lurching
commanding.
stature.
Yes.
Yeah.
Plus, I think there's a subtlety to Hopkins in this in terms of his performance. Not saying that Hopkins can't do it. I just don't. I can't see it right now.
What I like about Hopkins is when he speaks, he doesn't rush through his lines, but he says them quick. And he says them quick and understated. He'll talk about a line and he'll go like this, and then he'll suddenly go like this and like that, and then he'll come back up. As if everything he says is a prose and a poem. And I think that works for Bill Parrish because I think Bill Parrish is a man of words.
Sure.
And I think Gene Hackman is a man of blunt dialogue.
Yeah. I agree with that.
It would be tough to have him go through some of the prose that Bill Parrish said. They would have to change the dialogue.
Now, that could be from Hopkins. It could be from Martin Brest's direction. But the note I have here is that they came to, quote unquote, frequently came to blows because Brest always wanted to do multiple takes. Now, frequently came to blows, really? You're going to tell me that they just started fighting off the side of the thing? I'm sure it meant verbal blows, but it's...
I'm sure.
So I guess, I don't know, maybe Martin Brest is a David Fincher who likes to do 60 takes, but I don't know. I don't know. So where that performance comes from, who knows?
Here's the thing. I know Martin Brest has done some great things and he's been around for a while, but if I was directing Anthony Hopkins...
But you're not Martin Brest. You've done stuff already.
Yes.
You're an Academy Award nominated director from Son of a Woman.
But not a winner. Anthony Hopkins is a winner. If I got Hopkins to say a line, and if he's only done like one or two takes, and he's fantastic in this movie.
Of course.
I'm sorry. Fuck it, great, Anthony. We're done.
But you don't
Let's move
know.
on.
You don't know if that's from his 15th take or his second take.
I will tell you this: if he's usually a one take guy, and judging by all of other Hopkins stuff, I've never seen Hopkins in something he wasn't good in.
You've known me as a director. You know
you're a one take guy.
You know I get antsy at 5 takes. You know it's like if we haven't gotten up to 5 takes, we need to change something. Like that's how I feel. And I'm not a big rehearsal guy. I don't mind rehearsing just to know the lines, but
I like table reads. But
I don't mind that. But because that helps you shape the script again.
But yes, I understand you lose the sincerity of your scene when you've done it too many times.
Right. And as a director watching people perform, I want to see it as is. I don't want it to be clinical. I don't want it to be like I'm putting, you know what I mean? I want it to something I can feel. Like I can tell when there's a line or if you say something or somebody says something like that's really good. I like that. Like I want that reaction. I mean, he might not be that type of director, but whatever. That's how I am. So, you know, like I said, I don't know. It's different ways, different strokes for different folks, I guess.
Right.
Not that I could do a movie like this. Meet Joe Blue.
Meet Joe Blue.
So that mansion is actually not in the Hamptons. That's actually in Warwick, Rhode Island.
Yes.
And it's a huge friggin' mansion.
I will say that mansion is, I'll say it again, is gorgeous.
Oh,
I don't usually like classical styles like that either. I like a more modern style, but there's so many things. I like the staircase. Mm-hmm. I like the front entry doors or that dark blue, but almost black, which is very ethereal looking. Very, I wonder like if the color palette was chosen for those doors.
I gotta think they didn't do a lot of production design on the mansion, I would think. I mean, maybe little touches here and there, but they're upper crust wealthy people. What do you need to do? Their style is not what you need to worry about in terms of it's basically it's just a set for this play that you're watching. Right. You know what I mean? Yeah. So you really don't have to focus too much on it. I mean, I'm sure there was some stuff done, but I mean, like when you're looking at stuff where it's like that vase, that's so Bill Parrish.
Oh yeah,
you know
I mean? I don't need that. Yeah. I like the scenes where Anthony Hopkins stands up to Death a lot. I like where he yells at him and he talks to him and he talks back to him and Death is like, easy, Bill, easy, Bill, easy, Bill. Bill, at this point, Bill knows as it goes on. At first, Bill shuts up.
Yeah.
And he goes, are you going to fire? Like, if someone talks to me like that, I usually fire them. Mm-hmm. And then Death goes, are you going to fire me, Bill? And then Bill shuts up. Yeah. But at the end, after Death has fallen in love with Susan, Bill knows that he's got power over Death at that point. That now the tables have turned. and that Bill is teaching death lessons, and that Bill knows that death won't let him go because death is too connected to Susan. So at this point, Bill has less of a connection to life than death itself.
Well, he doesn't,
and
he's
yells at him
because
and
death
tells
is
him what's up.
confused. Yeah, death is confused in terms of what is appropriate, I guess.
What? Yes.
Yeah, like
what's
he's
real,
being selfish. Yeah.
And at that point, the wisdom kind of changes between the two characters and the dynamic changes. And it's through those arguments that you suddenly see that.
Right.
And all of a sudden, Bill's in the position of power. And I really enjoy it.
So I don't know if we touched on it, but why do you think it was forgotten? Because you said you chose this movie. I forgot that you chose. Get it?
I chose this movie because
I'm curious. I'm curious because our last week's podcast, we talked a little bit about Ghost Town, and
I think we talked about why it was forgotten, and like in terms of what people don't like about the movie and why they're probably not telling their friends about it. In terms of why I chose this movie is one of the things that scares me. I'm not afraid of death, but one of the things I am afraid of is mortality. I've always been afraid of getting old, of getting older, losing my hair, losing my eyesight. These are my biggest fears. Like dying, whatever. Living until you die is scary.
Gotcha.
That's why a lot of the things I connect to, a lot of things I write are things like, I've written the Peter Pan thing where it's about, I don't want to get into it. So a lot of the plot, but he's older at this point, and it's how his experiences have shaped him. He wants to be this younger person, but he's not anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Or things about immortal characters and things like that. Or just, Dorian Gray. I'd written a screenplay about Dorian Gray as well. And that's always interesting to me is how people who have lived forever view the world and how they come to accept it and how they view morality. And how we accept it on our own terms, like Bill Parrish does and stuff like that. So I really connect to a lot of that stuff, and a lot of that kind of stuff affects me because it's one of my greatest fears. As I said, I like a little suspension of disbelief, but a movie like that where then you can see characters learn about that and come to grips with that and come to terms with that, and I find it very touching. And I didn't cry at the end of this movie, but I do tear up a couple of times, like when he says goodbye to his daughters. When he turns to death at the end and says it's hard letting go, and he turns first, and they walk over the bridge, accepting the mortality of life itself. I mean, he's dead at 65. That's pretty young.
That's absolutely young.
So I think that's part of the reason why I chose this movie. It's part of the reason why I connect with this movie. And the other part is the cinematography is fantastic. And I love the performances and all the actors. And I think, like you said, a lot of people don't like Pitt in this movie.
Yeah.
And he's a little goofy, but that's what it's supposed to be. And he's fantastic. Right. And that goofy dynamic, along with the poise of the character who should be a little more goofy than death itself, really works for me.
I think the criticism of Pitt has always been that he's a pretty boy who can't act, and that's unfair.
He's a pretty boy who can act.
Exactly. That's unfair. Yes, he's gorgeous, but like it doesn't mean he doesn't have chops. I mean, you can have both. Everyone.
I was asking Elise when the movie started. I said, should I get gold highlights?
Well, I just like the hair and makeup people. Just kind of like, we gotta get these 2 strands of hair in front of his eyes. Do it. Like that whole look is always like it never moves.
Oh yeah,
unless when they have sex it moves. But
God, that sex scene is one of the most awkward sex scenes. It's just too much close up of the face and too much of Brad Pitt shaking his upper lip.
Like movie, man.
I've seen it done a little more romantically. Like I get that he's supposed to be an amateur, but like I'm glad it only lasts like 5 seconds.
Well, again, he was an amateur.
It's like, whoa, weird.
But that criticism has always been unfair. But I will say, in terms of him being a pretty boy, they can't act.
Yeah.
But I will say that when he comes back over the bridge and he's the guy again from the coffee shop,
yes.
and there are like Brad Pitt mannerisms that he does where like he's like pointing, he's looking up, and he's like touching his lip, and like it's like I can understand why people don't like that, but that's him. That's his acting.
But you didn't see that when he was death, and then you see that again when he comes back.
I get that.
So
I get that.
The man in the coffee shop is Brad Pitt.
What I'm saying, but what I'm saying is that those mannerisms I've seen in other movies. You know what I mean?
Here's the thing:
kind of like the George Clooney head nod, head tilt, that kind of stuff. Like just certain actors do certain things. Scissor running from Tom Cruise.
Exactly. We talk about, was it this episode or the episode before? It was the episode before. We talked about a Denzel movie.
Right.
Denzel is an amazing actor. But he is Denzel Washington in everything he's in. He's just a different emotion of Denzel.
Absolutely.
A lot of big stars are based on their personality, and they're great actors, but they play themselves in these roles.
That's what makes them leading men, and
so
that's
like
not
it's
just
unfair to take that against Brad Pitt.
Yeah, that's not just. No, I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not.
No, I'm saying
okay,
that you're.
right.
Yeah, I'm defending your point.
That's not just modern too. Jimmy Stewart is Jimmy Stewart and everything's in. Cary Grant is Cary Grant and everything. John Wayne is John Wayne. the big time movie stars are stars because they are charismatic on screen as who they are. That's what they know. You'll never see Harrison Ford do smaller movies where he's, oh my God, that's Harrison Ford. You know, like you'll never see that. The only time I've ever known that that's happened is Tom Cruise in Tropic Thunder. And that's it. But he had to put a ton of makeup on in order for you to kind of like disassociate yourself with, oh crap, that's Tom Cruise.
Even as Vincent in Collateral, which I love, Tom Cruise is still Tom Cruise as a bad guy.
That's what you want. That's what people go to the movie for, to see Tom Cruise in this role. I guess basically what we're saying is that you can't criticize movie stars for being movie stars. Right. That's who they are. Like they're not there to hide themselves in the character of John Adams, like who played John Adams in the miniseries?
Paul Giamatti.
Yeah, that's Paul Giamatti.
That's a character actor.
That's his wheelhouse.
So it's like Sam Rockwell and stuff like that. Those are actors that hide into characters, become the characters.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking about characters that become the actors that portray the characters.
Right. There's a difference, and they're both great. They're both styles are great. It's just about what your preference is. If you're not a big fan of Tom Cruise is in terms of his acting ability, you're not going to like any Tom Cruise movie.
You're making me really want to do Interview with the Vampire right now, because then we could go on and on about the.
Don't make me do this. I cannot.
I want to add it to the list. You told me not to.
Because I don't think it's forgotten.
It's kind of forgotten.
It's not.
It wasn't forgotten at the time, but
that's not a forgotten movie.
We'll take a survey of how many people who.
It's not forgotten. It's not forgotten.
That's fine. All right.
So shut up. This movie's really good.
I said why I like this movie.
I like it. Yeah. I like dialogue. Yeah. I like storytelling. I like the fairy tale aspect. I like the lighting. I like the cinematography. I enjoy the performances. I enjoy the tete-a-tete between in certain scenes, especially at the end when Drew and Death are kind of like going back and forth.
I think everything starting the day of the party through the party to the end is really, really
Which
really
is like,
done.
I think that's like the last hour.
It's like the last 40 minutes or so. Yeah, but again, it's a long movie, but you earn that ending. Sure. You earn that last 40 minutes. Sure. And like you said, it doesn't feel long. So I would say to people that don't like the movie because they've seen it on TV and they didn't like the TV cut, if you like film, it would behoove you to watch it again, the full version.
Even if you like plays.
Yeah. I mean, this is a tight movie. Your movie doesn't need 8,000 characters. And while this movie has a couple of subplots, they all revolve around Bill Parrish, about your main character.
Mm-hmm. And I know that last week we talked about how movies should be short. We talked about like 90 minutes to like, but
yes,
it's the total opposite of the movie. And I know we're going back on that, but if your movie's going to be 3 hours, it better not feel like 3 hours. And it doesn't feel like 3 hours because you are so engrossed in it.
Yes. As long as it's 3 hours, but you've stuck to the plot.
Sure.
You don't have extraneous things. And I don't think this movie has very many.
No, you have,
things.
Like we talked about, you have 6 characters.
6 characters.
And that's it. Everyone else is kind of like not, I know you talked about the Jamaican woman, but that's kind of like.
She's an important side character, but she's the only
supporting character. Yeah. There's no other. It's a play. It's why it feels like a play so much, because you have the 6 mains.
And they all very much rotate around your main character of Bill Parrish.
Right. And there is an engrossing nature to the conversations that Bill has with Death throughout the movie, from the beginning to the end. So those are like your mainstay moments. Those are like, those big and act enders and stuff like that, and act beginning scenes.
Yes.
Right.
And I always say that your story is not complete if it doesn't have a theme, if it doesn't have a lesson to be learned at the end. Mm-hmm. And this absolutely does, and has big themes and big lessons that they do kind of hammer at you, but in more of a fairy tale kind of way. And it's not like overdone, and they don't wink at the camera with their lesson.
So who's the main character?
I think it's Bill. I think we're supposed to think it's Bill because it's Bill coming to terms with death. But Death appreciates life, and he learns it through Bill as well. So I really think it's Bill. I used to think it was Death.
Right. Okay.
But as I've gotten older, I think Bill's the main. Because you can't relate to an ethereal being that knows everything and knows all. If you're watching this film, you're not a baby anymore.
But you can relate to somebody that is experiencing human nature and human emotion on a base level where you once did before, and maybe you're caught up with the fact that, no, I get what you're saying, but maybe if you're not as well-rounded as Bill Parrish is in terms of such a good guy who already knows these lessons.
And he's older. He's lived his life.
Right. Yeah. You can't really compare the two, because I agree with you. I think you can make a case for both.
You can because like I said, I used to think it was Death, but here's another thing. I can't relate to anyone who loves peanut butter so much.
I like peanut butter. I don't like it that much. I can't have it like that.
I hate peanut butter, so I can't relate to Death anymore.
Would you have some peanut butter?
No, thank you.
Just the spoon. Yeah, I mean, I can have peanut butter, but I can't have it like that. I mean, maybe once.
Like I can have Reese's peanut butter cups, and that's about it.
What about
I won't-
What about almond butter?
Almond butter's all right. That's really just peanut butter for some reason. I can eat peanuts, just when it's too strong a taste. I think when it
Gotcha.
becomes peanut butter,
Sure,
overpowering.
That's respectable. I get that.
Yep. So that's my thoughts on peanut butter.
Join us next week when we talk about jelly. Well, that's a good segue to talk about next week's episode.
There we go.
and end this podcast. So watch Meet Joe Black. But next week we're going to return, and we're going to be doing I don't even know what year in the 70s, but it's a 70s film. It stars Robert Redford. It's called 3 Days of the Condor. And actually, what's funny is that a lot of people compare Brad Pitt to Robert Redford, another, quote unquote pretty boy that came up that has chops.
They look very similar.
Well, they look very similar, but that was Redford's kind of like knock sometimes, where people thought, oh, he can't act because he's just a good looking face, and that's a crummy criticism both ways. So we're gonna do 3 Days of a Condor. Mike has not seen 3 Days of the Condor.
I know that it is a very significant cinematic film. I've just never seen.
Yeah,
it.
which is fine. So I'm interested to see what he thinks about it. But I have, and I obviously enjoyed it. That's why I think I'm the one that suggested this one, right?
Yes.
I can't remember. We went back and we go 1-1-1-1-1, right? Because I suggested Ghost Town. You did Meet Joe Black. So 3 Days of Condor. Okay. Yeah, so that'll be us next week. If you would like to hear some of our older episodes, you can catch us at ForgottenCinemaPodcast.com. We have all the posts there. All the episode links are there. You can also anywhere that you listen to this podcast, whether it's Apple Podcasts or Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, TuneIn app, wherever, we're everywhere. You can catch our backlog. We just started season 4, so we have about 30 plus episodes in our back catalog that are waiting for you to listen to.
A new episode every Wednesday.
We don't stop. We don't quit, unfortunately. I'm just kidding. If you'd like to perhaps suggest a movie that you want us to do, you can hit us up on the website. Like I said, ForgottenCinemaPodcast.com. We have a contact page there. You can also email us at ForgottenCinemaPod@gmail.com. And obviously, you can comment on any of our posts on social media. We are on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Just look for Forgotten Cinema. Twitter, I believe our handle is Forgot Cinema. Just look for the purple icon, the purple logo with the purple waves going through it. And that's us. So we are Forgotten Cinema, as I've said before. Do you have anything else to add?
Well, only that we should have said it in the We Are Wild Stallions.
Well, do you want to just do that now? Do you have anything else to
add? Just check out our merch page. If you like Forgotten Cinema, if you are a fan, we do have merch. I'm not going to pimp it as hard as I did last episode, but we do have merch available. We'd appreciate if you did that, or spread the word.
Oh, cute.
And that's the water heater. So we're out, folks.
So when you hear the water heater happening in Mike's basement, that means we are done here at Forgotten Cinema. So thanks for listening. I'm Mike Field.
I'm Mike Butler.
And this has been Forgotten Cinema, Water Heater Edition.
Hard to let go, isn't it?
Yes, it is, Bill.
And that's life. What can I tell you?